One day Peter and John were going up to the temple at the hour of prayer, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And a man lame from birth was being carried in. People would lay him daily at the gate of the temple, called the Beautiful Gate, so that he could ask for alms from those entering the temple. When he saw Peter and John about to go into the temple, he asked them for alms. Peter looked intently at him, as did John, and said, "Look at us." And he fixed his attention on them, expecting to receive something from them. But Peter said, "I have no silver or gold, but what I have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, stand up and walk." And he took him by the right hand and raised him up, and immediately his feet and ankles were strong. Jumping up he stood and began to walk, and he entered the temple with them, walking and leaping and praising God. All the people saw him walking and praising God, and they recognized him as the one who used to sit and ask for alms at the Beautiful Gate of the temple. And they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. So way back when, about 120 dog years or so, I think, I was in college. And I was, as I've always been, a student of humor. I have always wanted to understand what makes people laugh. And I didn't just look at the hip young folks on the humor scene at that time. I'd actually look more at the older folks who were still with us in the 70s and 80s for the most part. Jack Benny, Bob Hope, George Burns, and the slightly younger, more middle-aged crowd of folks like Buddy Hackett, Bob Newhart, Lonesome George Goebel, the like. It was a hobby, it was a delight for me, and it's one I've passed to my kids. One time my son was trying to figure out how to be funny in a play, and I took him to YouTube and showed him Charlie Chaplin. "Dad," he said, "he just walks and he's funny." Charlie Chaplin, YouTube. Kids, go get educated. But there was one younger group of comedians, one comedy troupe that grabbed my attention and that of my friends, and it's probably going to be no surprise to you. That group was Monty Python's Flying Circus. And yeah, a lot of their stuff was just stupid, a lot of it was kind of filthy, but there was an intelligence to a lot of it. An intelligence that betrayed the fact that these were kids who were raised in the best British schools and who often had advanced degrees. Well, back those 120 dog years or so, back when I was in college, this group came up with a movie, and it was called Life of Brian. And it was a movie that the Lutheran Church, in a move that I don't think has ever been replicated, immediately banned. You see, the film was set in the time of Jesus. It really wasn't about Jesus, but it was set in the time, and it dealt with issues surrounding life in that time. And the church had viewed this movie, disapproved, and stated unequivocally that no Lutherans should be going to see this movie. Now, my roommate and I, we were front-line Lutherans. We were headed to seminary, after all. So you know that this meant that we were first in line for that film the night it opened. Now, before any kids here go looking at this movie, kids, parents, this is a grown-up movie, please wait. And some of it, like most Monty Python stuff, well, some of it's great, and some of it falls a little bit flat. But what's great in the great parts usually has to do with what great comedy does. It finds truth in a situation that people usually miss. There's a scene where Brian, the namesake of the movie, is walking into a town, and a beggar comes to him and says, well, he asks him for money, and he asks him with the phrase, "Alms for an ex-leper." It's almost hard to say. Alms for an ex-leper. And Brian's already upset about something, and he's walking with his mom, and she's a piece of work. But then to his shock, he realizes this man, whom he thought was very ill, is skipping alongside him. And the truth comes out as the leper, now ex-leper, continues to beg. He's been healed. Jesus came by and cured him without even asking. But rather than feel grateful, the leper exclaims, "One minute I'm a leper with a livelihood, and the next minute I'm cured without so much as a by your leave." The leper is still begging. Jesus made him better. He changed his reality, but he wasn't ready for that. He'd only known a life of making a living by begging, and now he didn't know what else to do. That's where the comedy comes from, of course. It reveals part of the story that most of us wouldn't think about. That leper, he hadn't asked for his reality to be changed. Jesus cured him, but then he left him to figure out the rest. Our reality has changed, and for the most part it is not funny. Some are now struggling without work. Some are worried about their businesses. Teachers and students are trying to adapt. Parents and kids, are trying to adapt. Those working from home are feeling the pinch of this new normal. Some must go to work and risk infection for the sake of others or for the ill. A lot of folks are just scared to go out. It's a lot of change. Our reality has been shaken like a snow globe, and that snow globe has been set down on its head. And yet, there are a few good things coming out of this. Look at our Earth. Air pollution has been reduced dramatically in a few weeks. Dolphins are swimming in the now comparatively pristine canals of Venice, Italy. Sea turtles are nesting in untold numbers on the empty beaches of Thailand. But there are some human positives, too. We take each other less for granted. We long for our friends and realize how important they are. We rage against this situation, this virus, with expressions of love released in waves of creativity. The normal has changed. And as we are learning to walk in it, we need to be thinking about the lessons it's teaching us and how we might, with God's help, carry those lessons into the new reality that awaits us when the crisis has passed. We see Peter and John cure the lame man, lame from birth, in Acts. And we don't think about how his new reality will look in a few days after the excitement wears off. He has no trade but begging, no household we know of, no real plan. But what he has is what we have. He has God, he has faith, and he has the promise that those two things will carry him through his journey. We have God. We have faith. We have that promise. This time is bringing us lessons. It's also bringing us pain and even death. And none of that can be minimized. And we have to face that with the promise of the resurrection. But our life beyond this crisis, it will be decidedly less rich if we leave the lessons behind. God does not cause disease and calamity, but God works with us through ill to bring us to the people we are called to become. And as I tell our kids, our youth, in life, what breaks you makes you. What breaks you makes you. And in that process, if we will cling to, if we will trust, if we will dwell in God, God is the one who will glue us back together. I probably should mention that the classical definition of comedy actually has very little to do with jokes, clever lines, sight gags. The classical definition of comedy, like in Dante's Divine Comedy, is a tale that ends well. The road there might be rough, but the sun will rise. It's okay to mostly just survive this new reality right now. But watch for what it will teach us. The sun will rise. And what this time will teach us will bind us to God, to each other, and bring us to a richer road ahead. Peace.